What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be building a really exciting gaming PC build, one that's going to be amazing for 1440p and 4K gaming, gives you different options when it comes to the CPU and GPU choices, and should look amazing inside of this, the Lian O11D Mini V2 with some gorgeous fans from MSI of all people. That's right, I'll be walking you guys through all the parts in this build, why I've picked them, showing you how to put it together, and hopefully having loads of fun along the way, doing what I love, which is building gaming PCs. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. Now, the way this build is going to work is I'm going to dive straight into putting it together, starting by assembling things like the CPU, the SSD, and the memory, all of course into the motherboard. And I'll walk you through why I've chosen the parts I have as we go. Now let's start off, shall we, by taking a look at the motherboard, because I've got what is a pretty new motherboard design in today from MSI, and it's their X870E Gaming Plus Max Wi-Fi. Now, when it comes to selecting a motherboard for an AMD-based system, it's sometimes difficult to pick between the B850 and the X870 chipset variant. Now, this here provides us with the X870 features, which is more bandwidth, more PCI Gen 5 connectivity, more expansion slots, but at a price that's not that much more expensive than a lot of the B850 boards out there, especially the high-end designs. It also looks absolutely incredible in this white colorway. MSI have listened to feedback and finally just made the whole thing color matched. It's gorgeous. The PCB's white, the memory DIMMs are white, all of the PCI slots are white, the CPU power connections are white. You can see the back of the board has got this nice light grey colour. You're not going to see it anyway, but it looks incredible. And for a white build, it's going to tie in really nicely. They've also integrated a lot of silver in here, and I think that considering this is not the most expensive X870 board out there, they've focused on quality of life features where they matter. You've got toolless NVMe installation for the top drive only. The others will need a screwdriver, but let's face it, you're probably only going to be putting one in anyway. There's also cool features like the lockable PCI latch, which I think is really nicely implemented. I think this is probably the best implementation of any of the motherboard makers right now for easy release of this component. If we take a look at the rear I/O of the board as well, you'll see it's fairly solid. We have integrated Wi-Fi 7, we've got 5 gigabit Ethernet, so nice connectivity there. We're a little bit light on the high-speed USBs, but 2 super high-speed USB-Cs, one with DisplayPort, and then of course a range of USB 2s and 3s for good measure. Now let's talk about the CPU, shall we? Because that's the next important part to install in this build. And I've selected specifically the AMD Ryzen 7 7800 X3D. Why have I selected this, a last-gen CPU product, when I could go for the 98, the 9850? I mean, I've built loads of PCs with them here on the channel and included them in builds on Geeka PC, which is my UK pre-building company. Well, the reason is because this is going to be more than quick enough. When we look at graphics card choices, if you're going for a 9070 XT or 5070 Ti, the extra cost of a 9800 versus a 7800 is just not really worth it or required. That's more, in my opinion, beneficial for cards like the 5080 and 5090. This still gives you all of that L3 cache that makes these CPUs so good for gaming. It still basically dominates against Intel. Even their new Core Ultra 7 270K Plus comes close but doesn't beat out the 7800 X3D on average in our testing. Efficient TDP, and it costs around $100 less at the time of filming than the 9800 X3D, and that makes a big difference. In the current climate where memory and SSD prices in particular are insane, saving $100 on the CPU could be really beneficial to actually the other components in your build. Now I'm going to start by installing the CPU into the motherboard, lifting up the arm, dropping the processor in, aligning the triangle, and securing the arm back into place. Talking of expensive components, memories next. Yeah, I know, contentious point, right? Now this is a 32 gig kit of G-Skill's RIPJAWS M5. If you're watching this video and you're thinking, James, can't buy memory, the prices are stupid, what should I do? There are a few options. The first is an option not everyone's going to have, which is if you've already got DDR5 in your build, even if the speed's a bit rubbish, the latency's high, and maybe the capacity's not very good, stick with it for now and upgrade this component class later when prices fall, because they inevitably will. Whether we're ever going to go back down to like £80 or dollars for a 32 gig DDR5 kit, I'm not sure, but I would expect us to leave the 300s or 400s behind hopefully soon. The other option is you could go for one 16 gig DIMM now and add the other 16 gig DIMM in later. The performance impact of that is surprisingly minimal in lots of titles, and I've made a video exploring that in the cards section now. Again, not a great situation, but do your best to shop around, and I'll leave any links that I can find in the description below. Now, I'll be installing the RAM today into the 2nd and 4th RAM DIMM slots, so pull back the clips, a little something like so, slide the memory into place, bit of pressure, and we are going to be good to go. Another thing I've seen people do is go for black kits instead of white kits in white builds. Do you think that looks silly? Would you do it? Let me know in the comments. Storage is going to be the next component, and again, this is quite a subjective option really. I'll be installing in this build today the Samsung 9100 Pro. I'm going to link down in the description below the 2TB drive. This one is a bit more than 2TB, but it's just what I've got to hand. Our 2TB models in another build. This one is 8 terabytes, which is insane. 2 terabytes is going to be fine. The speed difference between them is pretty minimal. It's all about the capacity you're after. Of course, SSD is another area where you can try and trim some budget out compared to how much this exact spec is going to cost you, and it's definitely an area where you can go a little bit cheaper. Drop the M.2 heatsink on, and then we're good to go. That's our RAM, CPU, and SSD all nicely installed. I am going to take a little bit of a look quickly at the cooler and just see if there's any kind of prep that I can do at this stage before the motherboard is in the case and a little bit harder to access. Aha, this is it, I remember. Now, this particular model here is the MSI P13. MSI have actually done some cool stuff with this that make it a really compelling option against some of the more traditional names, I guess, in the world of coolers. The screen looks amazing, first and foremost, but on top of it, you'll notice this bracket. Now, if you take that off, it's just magnetic. It's hiding MSI's universal mounting hardware. So this can be installed on AMD or Intel without needing to be swapped out, which is pretty cool. Then, inside of the box, you see we've got all the different mounting hardware that we need to actually, well, get the cooler installed. Now, specifically, when we talk about that mounting hardware, I'm talking about this stuff here. You'll see we've got some spring tension thumb screws. We've got these male-to-male posts which are going to screw into the motherboard, and then these standard little silver screws here that you'd use for like a power supply, and what I'll use for installing the radiator into the top of the case. What I'm going to do is go ahead and locate the built-in plastic brackets on the motherboard just here. If you ever see me looking over there, by the way, I have a like direct line to our overhead C-cam. Go on, Andres, show us the C-cam. You see, look how clever that is. So if I move this, I can see. So if you ever see me looking that way, I'm trying to like line it up and get the perfect shot. You're not that interested, are you? So what I'm going to do is remove the stock plastic mounting hardware, add these male-to-male posts on instead, and then the rest we'll do later. But this will just make life easier, at least for now. Now that the motherboard assembly, as we call it, is basically complete, I'm going to move the motherboard into the case. This here is Lian's O11D Mini V2 in white, and it's one of my favorite looking PC cases ever. Now, as the name suggests, it's basically just an O11D, but smaller. How have they achieved that? Now, they've achieved that by reducing the intake capacity on the side. PCI lane slots, you only get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas you get like 7 on a standard case. It still takes full-size standard ATX motherboards, but you will struggle with the ATX. And if you look round to the rear, it still just about takes ATX power supplies, but they've actually had to make the PSU stick out slightly, and the panel kind of curves around it, which is clever. Now, you always want to check these standoff locations are correct. Here we've got 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom, so that's perfect and means we're ready to install the motherboard with no issues. You can actually lower and raise the motherboard in this build if you wish. That's to improve things like radiator clearance. Now, I think I prefer it in the standard raised position, and we should have enough room for the radiator at the top with this like this. And I'm going to screw it down with all the screws that come included in the case accessory box, 9 in total. Now, the next step of this build is a bit of an interesting one. Because this is quite a compact case, going in now and installing things like the CPU cooler and the fans is maybe not the best idea. Instead, I'm going to go for the power supply. And in keeping with a bit of an MSI theme, I've got this, the A750 GLS. I actually saw that on Amazon's Spring Deals Day, which was a couple of weeks ago now. This was one of the best value units on Amazon at the time. Pricing on it is still really strong. I'll link it down below. It's actually undercutting the Corsair RM750E, which is a power supply that we've used a lot. Now, the only downside with this one for this build is that it's black, not white. That means I'm going to be putting in some custom PSU cable extensions. I think the ones for the CPU we might be able to get away with not installing, as potentially once the radiator's in, I'm not sure you're going to see them. But let's check. Now, to figure this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 of the fans that I intend to use in this build today, and all I'm going to do is stack 2 on top of each other. That's going to simulate my radiator and my fan. I'm going to place it at the top of the build. Yeah, you can't really see the power cables when they're in. So I think for the CPU power cable will be fine. The GPU power cable, I'll put an extension on and for the motherboard, I do a white PSU extension too. And I'll link all those in the description below. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in a few different cables into the power supply. The first is going to be this, which is our motherboard power cable. You can see that it's got one end which is kind of split into two, and then it's got one end which is our big 24-pin connector. I've then also got this cable here, which is our CPU power cable. You can see we've got one 8-pin end and then a further two 4+4-pin ends. And then finally got our GPU power cable as well. This one's got these clever little yellow tips on the end, so you can see if they're not fully inserted. This is something we're seeing more commonly on power supplies, and it's designed to prevent issues with that 12-volt high power connector, which, as I'm sure you're aware, have been widely reported on over the years. I'm going to get all of those put into the modular interface. Honestly, if you've got the budget in the build, just go for a modular power supply. Don't mess about. It's going to save you so much time and headache, and in a smaller case like this, minimises all the cables that we have to, or in our case, don't have to manage. Spinning the case around to the rear, you can see exactly where the power supply is going to go in. The problem is because of the bracket that's been installed, you can't access the screws here and here. In fact, from your camera angle, you can't even see them. So what you've got to do instead is just remove these two screws at the top, and of course the second for number 2. That will then let the bracket get loose, and into this you're going to install the power supply, a little something like so. 4 screws, and then the whole bracket is going to sit back into place. Looking good. Next step is to pop in all of the front panel cables. That's things like the HD audio for the headphone mic jack port, which goes to the bottom left, our USB 3 Type A and Type C, which typically live on the right-hand side of the motherboard. On this MSI board, we've got one right-angled one here, which is in the way of the GPU support bracket. That will have to come out, and the other one is just below the motherboard power cable. That will then be rounded off with the front panel cable at the bottom right-hand side. Now, I say that about those cables, I've just had a realization. There is an additional USB 3 Type A header on the bottom. Great work, MSI. That means the GPU bracket didn't need to come out after all. With all of the cables and stuff sorted, the next thing I'm going to talk about is fans. Now, these are MSI's Easy fans, which I've used in a build a while ago now in black, but I actually quite like them and like the way they look. They've recently added to the lineup with these new reverse blade options as well. I appreciate this is not a pair of scissors, but trust me, it will work. Here we go. Haha, perfect. Now, the reverse blade options are, of course, all the rage when it comes to fans generally at the moment, and for good reason. It means you can have fans in intake, say at the bottom and on the side, which this case benefits from, and the fans will actually still look good. They won't look silly. In order to get the build looking uniform, I'll be using these Easy fans on the bottom, side, rear, and replacing the radiator fans at the top as well for good measure. I might even put a reverse blade one at the rear to try this out as a bit of an intake. I've seen a lot of people doing this to cool things like the VRMs, obviously exhaust out the top, so we'll have to see whether that works a little bit later. What that calls for, though, is it calls for a few moments of great tunes and pretty shots while I install fans. Yeah, all about the fans. The fans are all pretty much done and dusted. The last job is going to be replacing the built-in fans on the radiator with these fans instead, which are our MSI Easy fans. That's going to be pretty easy to do, no pun intended, with an electronic screwdriver, and then the radiator is going to sit in the top with the tubes at the front of the case. No, stop moving! Oh my God. No, the PC's going! You raise me up. There we go. See? Electric desks. Who'd have them? Right, the last stage of the build then, with the radiator in, that looks really good. The water blocks on, all the cables and stuff are running through the tubes on the radiator, so that's fine, is the graphics card. I wanted to keep this build with an all-white theme. I've obviously got a bit of MSI going on as well, and their Gaming Trio 5070 Ti in white is actually possibly my favourite white GPU design ever. The only thing that could be better is if this was like a powder-coated white heatsink rather than silver, but that's a very, very small criticism. You'll obviously note that at the moment, there are some availability concerns with graphics cards generally. The 5070 Ti is a pretty affected card by that, and this is probably going to be my last 5070 Ti build on the channel, unless maybe the production kind of ramps back up again, which is quite sad really. You could also swap this out for a 5070, of course. You could upgrade it to a 5080 if this card isn't available, or on the AMD side, you might want to look at something like the 9070 XT, which is the closest like-for-like replacement. No room for a vertical mount in this build. You can see that's not going to work, so a horizontal mount it is, but my goodness, that's going to look good. I am so excited. Now, in order to install this, I'm going to be using the top 2 PCI slots. They actually start start a bit lower down because of the spacing we talked about earlier with how the motherboard and stuff is movable. Just a simple 2-slot design, this one, not particularly massive to tell you the truth. And those PCI lanes are going to pop straight out. Make sure that your PCI latch is unlocked. Slide the graphics card into place, lock the PCI latch, and just check that you can't pull it out, basically. We're then going to go ahead and secure the graphics card down with the included silver screws. There's the first one and the second one. And then I'm going to see if I can get this GPU support bracket working. Oh, aha, that comes off. That should give me access to this little screw here, which after a bit of a rotation, oh yes, look at this. Then we can tighten that up. Oh yes, this is where Lian and Lee are just unmatched. Like, look how amazing that design is. That is so good. Considering it's a small case that's gonna have some constraints, so fantastic to build in. GPU power, I've actually got this right-angled GPU power cable, which is gonna slot into place over the graphics card. So a little bit different today. That's gonna sit there, then it's gonna tuck through the grommet where the motherboard power cable comes out, a bit of cable management. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Do you guys prefer the over-the-top graphics card mount or an undermount? Not so much room in this case to actually route it, so I actually think for this build, an overmount is gonna be the better option. I'm so excited to turn this thing on, so give me a few moments to get it properly cable managed, make sure all the fans are looking pretty, and yeah, let's get this thing booted up. What an incredible looking gaming PC build. The white theme on this system is simply stunning. Now, I've got to give a quick shout out to MSI for sending over their MPG 271QR. It's one of their newest QD OLED monitors that was perfect for benchmarking this system at 1440p, and we did some 4K benchmarks too. This is a 500 Hertz panel, which is insane. 1440p and its QD OLED looks incredible. We're going to review this in full over on the website. I'll leave a link to that down below once it's live. And I'll also link it on Amazon in the description for you to take a look at too. Now, in terms of performance, how does this system stack up? And let's start off, shall we, with the best result of all, Raiders. Now, tested at 1440p high settings, saw us achieve an average frame rate of over 200 frames per second, with 204.9 to be precise. Raiders is a fairly easy game to run, but even at 1440p high, this frame rate is still impressive. Move through to Battlefield 6, which was also tested at this lower 1440p resolution. Here at the high settings preset, I saw an average frame rate of 168 FPS. Battlefield 6 is one of those rare examples of an FPS game where I actually think running at a higher res has a massive positive impact. Visually, it's one of the best looking games I think ever. The final game I tested at 1440p before we moved to the 4K results was Marvel Rivals. Here we saw an average frame rate of 142 frames per second. Not bad. Moved through to 4K and I tested Resident Evil Requiem to start off with. Here at 4K on the high settings preset, our average frame rate sat at over 76 frames per second. Not bad considering this is one of the most demanding latest AAA titles. Call of Duty's Black Ops 7 in the in-game zombies mode at 4K high performed even better with an average of more than 91 FPS. While I also tested, finally, Cyberpunk. It's a game that's been in our benchmark roster for such a long time, but is so easy to compare when it comes to a build-by-build basis with the in-game benchmark mode that we just keep using it. The average frame rate was 75 frames per second in Cyberpunk at 4K high. This is a build then packed with plenty of power, but would you go for this GPU, or given the current market pricing, would you rather go with the likes of a 9070 XT instead? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.